And good evening. Good
Good
evening,
evening, everybody.
everyone.
Good evening.
Good
Uh,
evening.
And good evening to our viewers, those who are on YouTube, those who are on Facebook, those who are listening in on CBN Radio 90.9 FM in the Virgin Islands, and those who are watching in channel 82 in Bermuda. Thank you, and once again, welcome to our Territories Talk and our monthly Women in Leadership series. As we stated earlier in this show, that one of the foundation of this show is to actively promote, and give exposure to the women of the overseas territory and other parts of the Caribbean region. Um, Tonight, I want to give apologies for MP Grisha Heyliger-Marten of St. Maarten. She was actually promoted to the acting Speaker of the House, or they say President of the House of Parliament in St. Maarten. So she had some other duties that came upon her. So she gives her apologies, but she says she'll be back, and she'll be back with added volume of things to talk about. So tonight, we have three powerful women from three overseas territories. And in order of protocol, I will start with Minister Tinee Furbert of Bermuda. Thank you for coming to the show, Minister. And then we have Cabinet Secretary Miss Sandra Ward of the Virgin Islands. And then thank you for coming to the show, Miss Ward. And then soon to be MP in Cayman Islands, Miss Emily Decou. So thank you for coming to the show. And with that, I now turn you over to my co-host, Mr. Eden Hurston.
Thank you so much for being on the show, and just fantastic to meet you all, and just a real honor and a pleasure to have you on Territories Talk. As we always start off these Women in Leadership series, we've had some really great discussions, and we're always aiming for just a natural flow, and as things go on and as we warm up, then just feel free to bring your points to the table and play off of each other and discuss and pose questions to one another, and just feel free to let it happen. So we always like to start off with hearing, just tell us a little bit about yourself and the viewers out there, a summary of who you are, so people feel like they get to know you a little bit. We'll start off with MP Furbert. Sorry.
It's okay. You got it. MP Minister Tinee Furbert. So I'm representing Bermuda this evening. Just like to say hello to everyone who's joining us this evening. A little bit about myself. I was first elected as an MP back in July of 2017. So I've been, I would say I'm one of the newer MPs, part of what we call the Robin Hood corner with MP Thomas Christopher Favis. And so, I've been around since 2017. Prior to me being elected, I was very involved with the party, the Progressive Labour Party in Bermuda, serving roles such as deputy chair, serving at my branch or constituency level, as chairperson, as secretary. And so, I've been around that area for a while. I smile in regards to politics, because if you asked me 20 years ago if I would ever be in politics, I would probably tell you no. But part of my college experience, we had the opportunity to work within the third sector, and we did a lot of community work as part of college requirements. And so I had the opportunity to integrate and work with persons in the community, and that kind of started off my involvement with wanting to get a little closer to the area of politics. And so I did a lot of community work, and I think that was evident, particularly when I came home. I continued to do more community work. And I just so happened that I had attended a constituency branch meeting for the Progressive Labour Party in my area. And I got involved that way. And I was like, wow, you have the opportunity to be up close and upfront and personal with leaders in our country and people who make decisions. And being a leader in my own right, interesting, I had married into a family of the opposite party at that time. And they would always ask, today, who do you support? Who do you vote for? And I never really shared that, but we always had opposite sort of views, and us trying to sway persuasions of different political beliefs. So they have now converted and come over. So that's really my beginnings of being in the political arena, and now being appointed to serve as a minister in the cabinet of Bermuda, serving with the Ministry of Social Development and Seniors, which is a portfolio that's very close and personable to me, being that I am in the area of my profession prior to coming into politics in the area of health and social services. So it fits me well. I think anyone that would say, my connection as being a minister would say that this ministry does fit my skill level and my experience well.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. You get to expand upon the skills that you were already practicing, and such an important role to play as well. Seniors and social development is critical. Ms. Ward, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, thank you very much. And again, thank you for the opportunity to join this esteemed panel this evening. Thank you very much. I do appreciate the invitation. All right, so I am Sandra Ward, and I describe myself as a public service professional. Actually, I've worked with the government of the Virgin Islands for the past 20 to 25 years. And I've had the opportunity to serve in areas of policy, management, administration, and certainly communication. When I entered the service, I entered as an information officer in our government information service, then had the opportunity to become chief information officer, and then director of communications. I then transferred to the Premier's office, where I served as a deputy secretary, and then as acting permanent secretary. And then since 2012, I've had the opportunity to serve as cabinet secretary in the cabinet office, and it has been quite an experience. I believe that I'm the typical BVI lander, Virgin Islander, who cannot stay away from the BVI maybe more than 2 to 3 weeks without feeling an ache to return, because that's what happens to me whenever I leave my dear homeland. I love to read. I consider myself to be a news junkie. I love current events. I love history. I do love to, learn about new areas. Especially when I get to learn about that on the news. But I do love public service. I really, it's a noble calling, and I believe, because I'm sure we'll get into more. But I'll tell you why I'm sure it is a noble calling for me. But that in a nutshell is who I am. Sandra Ward. Thank you. Oh, I forgot to say, I always like to say this, I'm a committed Christian as well.
Thank you very much. Fantastic. And Emily, tell us some about yourself, Ms. Decou.
Thank you so much, Ian. And thank you so much, everybody, Territories Talk, Chris, for the invitation to come on tonight and represent my beloved Isle Cayman. I was born and raised in Cayman. It's my heart and soul. Born, raised, educated, lived here my entire life. I ran for office this year in the 2021 general election. But prior to that, I've worked in financial services and the legal sector for a decade, give or take. And about outside of work, outside of foraying into the political sphere. I enjoy things that most island babies love to do. Going into the ocean, soaking up vitamin D, as I call it. I love to snorkel, just in nature, and be surrounded by the beautiful natural resources that we're so blessed to have as we do. And it's my honor to do whatever I can to protect both the environment and the nation, people, its culture, heritage. I am an under 30 young political aspiring individual who really just wants to be the change I wish to see in my country. I know where it could be. I know where we can go. I believe when you know better, you should do better. And, I've been blessed to have a lot of support and positivity in my journey thus far. I've been able to get quite involved in, a lot more involved with my community since running, which has been just a true gift and an honor, really. I am part of a local grassroots organization called VI Cayman, where our goal is to amplify the needs and goals of the community through the ears of decision makers in order to find sustainable solutions for the impact. And it's a pleasure to be a part of that organization and to work with the phenomenal people that I do on that team, and of whom I'm very pleased to say one of our members is on this call. Shout out. Brother Eden.
Another rascal.
Yeah. To all watching tonight, thank you so much for tuning in. Like I said, it's a real pleasure to be in the position that I'm in, and tonight my goal is to even if I can inspire one young person to step up and say I want to be the change I wish to see, I'll have done my job. Die a happy lady, I say.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emily. Yeah,
Thank you.
rascals are everywhere in these days.
Yes.
Working together and galvanizing. We're going to hand it over to our in-house woman in leadership, Miss Shaina. You can kick us off on the discussion.
Okay. All right. Well, now that we have a sense of who are distinguished panelists tonight, we're going to get into the conversation now and ask you guys to share with us more about your career choices, because I'm hearing a lot of, you guys have some very long journeys, exception of Emily. But,
it's been a long journey.
It's been a long journey. It's a short, long journey, right? I understand you. Sorry, I feel you. I know we all have days like that. But tell us a little bit in terms of why did you choose your career? I know you kind of touched on it in terms of what you've done along the way and how it's shaped you, and also share with us, what have been some of your highlights or your challenges that you have encountered, and how that has also made you who you are as a professional. So we'll start with Minister Tinee.
Thank you, Shaina. I guess I can.
So let's start with you. So, for example, I read your bio, and I realized your background is occupational therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, why was that your choice in terms of from an education standpoint, and then on to where you are now?
So I had a fascination with the human body, and that was it encompassed everything. So your spirit, your body, and your mind. And I think that is very important when we are considering wholeness of one person, that we consider the spirit, the body, and the mind. And so I wanted a profession in which I could work in all of these areas. And I don't know if anyone is familiar with occupational therapy, but we work in hospital settings, we work in mental health settings, we work with neurology. Some therapists actually specialize in orthopedics as well, and also in geriatrics or senior population, as well as pediatrics. And so I love all people, all ages, all areas of development. And so I wanted a profession in which I could have experiences with every type of person. And with my connection, again, my fascination with the human body as well, it was just a good fit as well, to be able to connect and work with people and to work towards rehabilitative goals and restorative goals and client-centered goals. And that's how I started within occupational therapy. I was able to get my master's in occupational therapy, Masters of Science in occupational therapy, where I actually had performed. My thesis was in comparing the perceptions of parents and teachers on the development of children, and it was actually pretty interesting how parents perceive the performance of their children versus how teachers or educators perceived the development of children. And so I've done that for a while. I still, that's still pretty much close to me as well. It's not an area in which I want to lose, so I still keep up my professional designation, because politics can be very finicky at times. And but with that, I believe that this was a great fit as well to enter into politics, understanding people, and wanting to be around people, wanting to make a difference in the lives of people, wanting to help people achieve their goals and their objectives, which led me in the direction of politics and wanting to help people greatly with achieving goals and objectives. As far as highlights and challenges, I'd just like to speak to one particular challenge, and particularly during this election, because people forget that politicians are also humans and people too. And this year I had lost one of my best friends, and it was just before we were about to start campaigning for a new election. And I remember having to go through this experience, experiencing a lot of grief and loss, and I had to pull up my socks and I had to put on a smile, even though I was grieving greatly for a friendship loss of over 30 years.
Wow.
And I had to remember that this person was an integral part of my political journey, and who had assisted me, with winning campaigns before, and how they would want me to press and push forward for the good of the people. And I have a good sound team that support me, and other friends, and other a great support system. And that was just one challenge. We experienced many challenges. But as far as politically, I think a lot of times we hear negative stories, and we hear bad news. And as politicians, we do, our intention is to help people. And I would hope that any politician that goes into politics, their intention is to help and uplift people. And what you do get as a politician, you hear a lot about hardships. And when you actually go out and help people, you hear less of the outcome, of the good outcome. And so I love to hear good stories, and I love to hear good outcomes. And so I'm just letting people who, especially my constituents and the people of Bermuda, when we do help, let us know, and let us, let us. Yes, we want to hear about the negative experiences, but we also want to hear about the good outcomes after that negative experience as well.
Yeah, after they receive the help. How we actually help them.
Yeah, so it kind of goes silent afterwards, and you're like, okay, it's silent because maybe everything's okay, But we like to hear good stories as well.
That's awesome. So how many years have you been in politics?
Like I said, I won my seat in 2017.
Okay.
And prior to that, I had been in politics at least 6 years prior, helping out at the party level prior to that. So
Okay. Okay. So you've been active on that political landscape all that time. Awesome.
yes.
That's great. All righty. So let's now switch over to Miss Sandra. Let's hear why you chose to be a public servant for life.
Public officer, right?
Yeah, public officer. Similar to a minister, you know, and having been a former public officer myself, I know we hear a lot about, you know, what's going wrong. And because we're kind of like the help desk for the country, so I kind of relate to what she's saying. And you know, I know it's the same thing for us, even the public service. It was like we were the help desk for the country. But you know, how has it been for you? What has been your journey?
All right. When I heard the minister speak, and I said, "Is she talking about Bermuda or the BVI?"
I know,
anyway,
right?
But it's easy for me to say that my career choice happens by accident. But now that I have spent so many years in government, I would say it was a divine appointment. And then I talked about the noble calling. Because when I was finished, when I graduated with a liberal arts degree in communication. And back then, in terms of communication opportunities, it was very limited. It was really only going to be ZBVI. And I thought about where am I going to work? But I knew I didn't want to stay in the States. I knew I wanted to go because I was constantly motivated by
call me and
being able to return home.
I text myself.
Being able to return home to make my contribution to the development of my country. And I found out about an opportunity in Government Information Service, got the job, but I said, I'm only going to stay in government for 1 year because my thought of government, you know, it wasn't really positive. Like government, you know, to some people you think, okay, they don't do much or whatever. So I said, okay, 1 year, I'm going to look. And then by the time I got to like 5 years, I was like, whoa, I'm still here. But I was still there because my perspective changed. The experience was just so enlightening because you realize that government has such an impact, as they would say, from birth to the grave. But the whole thing of helping people, and because I got into the Government Information Service and then conducted interviews with our leaders, our senior public officers, I had to learn so much about government because one time I'll be interviewing somebody for health, another time somebody in communication and works, someone in the chief minister's office. So, you know, my appreciation for who we were at that time, I mean, grew. And I got to really, you know, love being a public officer. So I didn't start out initially because I really, to be very honest, it was always my goal that I would be somewhere in another country covering news because I get fascinated with that. Whenever I look on television and I see something happening in Afghanistan or somewhere, like, oh, I wish I were there, you know, covering that event. So I always saw myself covering, developing stories. But again, I have no regrets in joining the public service because, again, working with our foundational leaders who set the pace for where we are today, getting to learn so much more and having a better appreciation of who we are as the Virgin Islands. It has certainly been an awesome experience. So it's not a career that I chose, but certainly now I see where the Lord had guided my steps in entering public service. And then you asked about highlights and challenges. For me, highlights, when I think of highlights, the opportunity to work with so many different people who have made a difference, who continue to make a difference in the lives of our people, but to be at the seat where the planning for certain decisions were made and then look at the positive impact it has had in improving the quality of life for others. There have been a lot of other highlights as well. I mean, if I say that I worked with Mr. Stout, people will probably start calculating and say, what? But anyway, yes, I did work with him.
Yeah,
He was the first chief
you're giving
minister.
it away. Yeah.
But certainly he helped to set the infrastructural phase of development in place. But to be able to connect to that history when you hear it today. And I said, wow, if I were working in the private sector, I would not have had that opportunity. I would not have been able to really connect to what someone is saying. And for me, the public service, for me, improving the lives of people. I know people have their reasons for working in the private sector, but I just think that's so profit driven. And for me, though, helping, I mean, in government, we know that salaries are not as high in the private sector, but I really have now been driven by salaries. And just to know when someone meets me on the street and they said, well, I heard you in an interview and I didn't know this about government. And then knowing that they learned that gave me great, great satisfaction. And as we continue to work to help to improve the lives of people. In terms of challenges, I think it would have to be trying to find time or ways to balance the other interests that compete for your time. And sometimes it depends on what you have to work on. Your social time or social networking is reduced. So I think I'll have to leave it at that. Just trying to balance competing interests.
Yeah, those long hours, it's like public service never stops.
Right.
Yeah, it never stops. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to now switch over to a lady after my own heart. I'm a beach bum at heart too. Catch me, I'll be on the beach with my laptop. That's work for the day.
Yeah.
So share with us, what's your journey been like?
It's been an unforgettable and never a dull moment kind of experience. I stepped into the political arena earlier this year after vowing for many years not to. The leadership that we had sort of gotten accustomed to, and that there was a need for a shift in status quo in order for our people to truly we're a very wealthy country financially, have beautiful natural resources, so we have a tourism product and a stable economy. It's all well and good, but when you're canvassing, when you're meeting people, and you're hearing the real on the ground stories that these in the face of big four firms being here, there are people literally next door who don't have lights, or and that's a shame, and it's avoidable. And personally, I'm a justice driven kind of individual. My dad was law enforcement for 35 years now at this point. He was a civil servant, police officer, for a good 20 years, probably 25. And I was very much inspired by my dad's very strong drive to seek justice. He was a police officer, worked in the drug task force. He was an officer for our local department. He worked on calls and stuff, upper level. But he never stopped doing what he could. He's a very selfless individual, and I admire him, and I think I inherited a lot of that from him. I'm gonna tear up a little bit, but yeah, I'm very inspired by my dad, and watching. When you meet people in the community, they're not asking you to fly them to the moon. They're just asking for certainty that their kids' futures are secured, that they have a chance to prosper in their own nation. Something as simple as, you live in a low-lying area. if government is doing its job properly, it should take into consideration that you are in some way a vulnerable individual and should mitigate, furthering your vulnerability. And, I stepped up because I saw that wasn't happening, and more people were continuing to suffer. And if somebody didn't step up and, as I say, be the change they wish to see, it would, I was spurred by hearing stories from members of my community, whether they be elderly people who are unable to afford health insurance, single parents with children of special needs, who aren't sure how, if they, should I pay for therapy for my kid or groceries? And when you think about how rich our resources are in our country and the allocation of said resources, I don't know how you can see that and not want to step up and do the right thing. When you know better, you should do better. Like I said earlier, I've worked in financial services in the legal sector, starting off in litigation, where I was in the room where you're dealing with personal injury cases and cross-border disputes and all kinds of stuff. But it's the people that are at the end of your client. They are a human and they deserve an advocate. And when you're in office as well, that's what you're doing. You're acting as an advocate for your community, and your community extends beyond the people. It's the environment. Very passionate environmentalist, have been since I was that's going to change.
Yeah.
And, it's something I take great pride in because nature is a finite resource, and we take care of it so that it can in turn take care of us. Act with reciprocity, just be good citizens and uphold our moral generational obligation to preserve our planet for future generations. So, like I said, I have a background in financial services and the legal sector, so I know how things should be done. I know how governance should be practiced. Don't happen not to the private sector. You're held to rigorous guidelines, regulations, reality data, money laundering, that kind of thing. Client, it's a non-negotiable. And so when you look at government, which is comprised of accountants and lawyers and high-ranking professionals who should know how governance works, given their track records in the private sector, and then you look at the outcomes of their decisions in government, parallels, positive ones at least, you got to step up at that point. And at the end of the day, you got to go home, and our country is small, and you're going to be in the grocery store with your constituents, and you got to be prepared to have those hard conversations and be there and listen and take their needs and goals and do your job, represent your people, basically, and the highlights of the journey thus far have been similar to what Miss Sandra said. The people you get to meet in this journey, the beautiful community members who make this all worth it when you have a rough day and you get to speak to somebody who know who your mom and your dad is and remember when you were this tall, and it's beautiful. You just want to take care of that. And those highlights come and they balance out the challenges. I try not to focus on the negative. I try to use challenges as a learning experience to help me evolve and do better when I know better. But being a first timer in the political arena with no actual political education formally, that was a big challenge, and I learned a lot. And I used this last election cycle as a sort of learning experience for what not to do when I run for election in 2025, because that is happening, and I'm geared up and ready to go and really excited to do this again and to do this better and to get proper representation in Parliament for the beautiful people of the Cayman Islands, and serving them in a position of leadership would be the highest honor, because the people are just the best. They're beautiful, and it would be a real honor to, say that, I'm the member of Parliament for the constituency of Georgetown East in this case, and I've got the remit of a patch of mangroves as well, and there, and the biodiversity that comes with that, and the marine parks, and just, it's all one big beautiful gift that it's a honor to get to represent.
Awesome. Love it. Yes, so you have had quite a journey. All right, so let's moving on to the next question. We'd like to hear who has inspired us, because we, all you guys have touched on those persons that have been very impactful in your lives on some level or another. But specifically when it comes to the mantle of leadership, who are the women that have inspired you along the way? Starting with you, Minister.
I would first like to start by saying that I'm inspired by many women.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many amazing and wonderful women throughout the world, and particularly in Bermuda as well. Women who you see have struggled through so many obstacles and experiences, and still they survive. And so there are many survival stories, particularly with women. But as far as women who have influenced me closely, I would have to say my mother, and also my godmother, who was an extension off of my mother. My mom was someone who worked in the hospitality industry and hospitality and tourism industry. And so I growing up, I could see that she worked very, very hard, shift work. She would come home for a break and then go back again. And I have three sisters. I'm the oldest, and we used to benefit from the treats from. She used to be a silver service waitress at one of the hotels, and she used to bring home some of the goodies from the hotel, from the meals for us to have. But not only that, I think most of my family, and particularly the women in my family, mother's sisters as well, who also worked in the service industry, got to see them work really, really hard to try to take care of their families and raise their children. So I knew that I myself, I wanted, I thought, I thought that I'm not going to work that hard. I'm not going to work as hard as my mom. She's out there hustling, but I'm out there hustling. I'm doing a different hustle because I'm just, and I guess, just watching her strive for the things, strive for things and to support her children. It instilled into me some very good work ethics, how to connect, how to treat people, how to serve people, and I work. Anybody would tell you I work really, really hard to achieve most things. And then my godmother, who also helped me, particularly in the political area, because she was the one who did introduce me to politics and leadership and making me recognize historical persons and figures and women in leadership. And she also encouraged me to get a good education. And I remember when I was exploring, I had finished high school, and at the end of high school, you develop a plan, where you're going to go off to university, go off to college, you're going to go to work. And in my mind, I just thought, well, my mom's worked really hard, and with her paycheck, she cannot afford to send me to college and send me overseas to further my education. And I said, I'll just go and work. And my godmother said, Tinee, just apply to colleges. Apply. You never know. You did really well in school. Just apply to schools and apply to scholarships. And so I did that, and I had gotten accepted into a college. And I said to her, I said, well, I don't have any money. I can't go. I can't go to college. And she said, well, I will see how I can help you fund your first year, your first semester. But she didn't even say the year, your first semester. And I said, okay. So she helped me with my first semester, and she said, after that, you're on your own. So I knew I had to work really, really hard to make sure that I was could be a good candidate to be able to receive scholarships. And so I did. I worked really hard that semester. However, I had applied to scholarships and I did not get any. And so I had to return home to work. And so I did that. I returned home to work, but that even gave me even more motivation to want to return back to college and continue with my education. And so I was able to save money during my work at home for another semester. And I saved enough money to return the following semester. And then I had gotten, my grades were so well in school. I did after that receive many scholarships to be able to continue with my education, receiving my master's degree. And so I share that just to say, women support each other. And, even stories, you may not have a great success story of a mother who, was this doctor or this lawyer or this big professional. But just, even watching the struggles of many women to encourage you to want to do better and to want to serve and to want to build capacity. And I think there's, and as far as politically, politically, there are many women politically who, I'm one of these people, I like to learn from other people's mistakes. And so I will study and observe persons and watch their actions and recognize attributes and characteristics that I don't want to be like. And I don't want to be like as a politician. So I would have to say the support, particularly I had asked one of our former leaders of Bermuda, Dame Jennifer Smith. I had met with her one time and I had asked her about, who were your biggest supporters in politics? And she said, even though women were my biggest critics, they were also my biggest supporters. And so I'm inspired. I'm inspired by many women and the influence of many women.
Awesome. I love that college story though. It really, you were determined for that success, and to know you went off and was able to actually go all the way up to grad school. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, so let's hear from Miss Ward.
Yes. All right. So in terms of women who have inspired me all along,
Yes.
I say that leadership is a package, right? Sometimes we think that leadership is just having the academics. And I say that to say that when I look over my life, I see how early in my life various people have been preparing me for where I am now. And I too would have to credit my mother as my first teacher. I constantly heard about the importance of education and how education was going to open doors for me. So even if I didn't want to go past high school, it was something she just drilled into me, because she would always say, she didn't go to college, but she would always say that she wants me to do better than she did. And then I think in our community in the Virgin Islands, we know we have a lot of strong women. And I look at my teachers. I remember teacher Daisy Simmons as actually my first teacher, first official teacher in education. And I look at how I mean, I'm looking back now because at 3 years old, of course, what was I thinking? But I look back now and I look at how she nurtured me. I go through to even primary school, and these are teachers with whom I still have relationships. And they would say to me, I always knew that you would have attained such. And this is why I did so. But I have people, I must credit people like teacher Sylvia Adams, teacher Curlin Letzum, teacher Judith Vanterpool, and in high school, teacher Jenny Wheatley. We had a situation one time in school. I remember there was a fight in the class, and some of us decided to run down to the principal's office for the principal to come up, and it was Mrs. Wheatley. And I went down and took the lead to make the complaint. And I spoke in, of course, you'd expect our dialect. Mrs. Wheatley didn't want to hear about the fight. She turned around and she said to me, young lady, if I ever hear you come back into my office speaking like that, she said, what I will do with you. And that was the last, I mean, oh my goodness. I tell you, that impacted me for life. And I made an effort to speak properly. Mrs. Wheatley didn't even go up to the class to find out what happened, because once she was finished scolding me. And I look to, we have one of our centenarians, Emma Jean Creaky. I also had the same experience with her, where I can't remember if I don't think I was in high school, so I had to be under 10, 11, and going into her store. And Mrs. Creaky is our first woman to ever be nominated to sit in the House of Assembly. I'm learning all that now. I didn't know how great she was or is. And she owns a store, a shoe store, a fabric store. But I remember going in there with a group of friends one afternoon, and she picked me out of that group and took me aside, and she just said to me, and I don't know what my interaction would have been with her before, and she said, I want you to speak properly at all times. So of course, when you're around Teacher Jenny or you're around Mrs. Creaky, if you're with your friends and you want to speak dialect, you're either going to hush at that time, or then you have to speak properly. But I say that to say that I kept that in mind, and look, I ended up in the area of communication, where you have to have good diction, articulation, enunciation, and all of that. But then as I got old and I realized who they are, and I said, oh my goodness, so I reflect on them as to how they inspired me to be where I am today. So, and then again, our community has a lot of strong women, and in the public service, we have a lot of female permanent secretaries. I would say, the awesome opportunity of working with Lorna Smith as my permanent secretary, and her work ethic. I mean, I learned so much from her. She was someone who refused to accept substandard work, and then fortunate enough to work with Rosalie Adams, a former teacher. And her style was certainly different, but the way she brought me along as well. So these are women I look to, and there are women in my family, but I think within our community, those teachers, my mother, and certainly those in the public service, I would say are women who inspired me. Awesome. Those are the people that come to mind at this time.
So basically from the cradle on up.
And again, as I said, leadership is a package, because it's just not one thing. Oh, yes. You need all the pieces of the puzzle to fit.
And they come in so many different forms, because again, sometimes the typical description of who we think, is a leader, we wouldn't think that or daycare teacher as being a leader, but it is one of those authority figures that help shape us.
Yes.
as people. So and you call names there that I know all of them, especially Tita Jenny. So I know exactly what you're referring to. She's amazing. But yeah, that's great. That is awesome. I love that. It takes a village. It takes a
Yes.
village. That's definitely what that story tells us. Okay, so Miss Emily, please share with us who have been those influential women in your life that have inspired you.
In just to go back to the start, I wish she was still here with us, but my grandmother planted the seed of running for office for sure. My grandmother worked very hard. She worked many jobs in hospitality in order to support her 5 kids. When her husband passed away when they were quite young, so my grandfather, as Miss Sandra said, it takes a village. Took the village of my great grandmother, helping her so she could lead her little pack. But she planted the seed to run for office because I can't remember which election it was, but she was telling me who she was going to vote for, and I couldn't help but ask, why are you voting for that person? When do you see them but when they want your vote, right? When they come to send the bus to come pick you up to get you to the polling station, but do you really feel represented by this individual? And she had a little pause and she looked at me, I don't know what you're talking about, her little thick West Bay accent. And she's like, you should run for office. And I said, I don't think I will, but it stuck with me. And last year in our country, one of our parliamentarians was convicted of I don't know what the actual conviction was, but he assaulted a member of our community. And that really drove me to want to run because this same individual was the person my grandmother spent her entire life voting for. And I wanted to kind of make her proud a bit. Not that I ran against that particular individual, but it was definitely her planting that seed that gave me the real courage to step up and look the wrongs in the face and say, I'm gonna do right by this. And when I think of the beautiful soul that my grandma was, she represented a lot of people in her district, products of their time, probably didn't make it past 2nd or 3rd grade, so literate, but academically, they started families very early, or just what have you. Work demanded that you started a job at 16, 17. And her hard work ethic to raise her family was very inspiring for me. And hoping that in running, I could, give people a different option, one that they could perhaps do more, one that they felt, is somebody who will listen and will represent them as they should be, and as their indirect taxpayer dollars pay for, right? So, but beyond that, globally, politically, I'm inspired by a lot of women in leadership. I can't even begin to put into words how inspiring Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez out of New York is for me, given she was the youngest ever female elected to Congress at 28, which is a year older than I was when I ran. And if I ever got to meet her, I would probably just fall in a puddle of my own tears, because she just really inspires me that much. But aside from AOC, I would probably have to also say Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand. I've always admired her very kind approach to leadership. She's a very kind. She really sets it apart, I think, in terms of showing that you don't need to have necessarily a harsh, profit-driven approach to leadership, but that you can take care of your people. And under her guidance, the country now measures its people's happiness when it talks about its GDP, and that's radical, but it's great, and I hope that's the direction that more countries go in. When I was running for office, I had what I called Decou, because my last name is Decou, and it was just a play on words, like the committee, Decou, and it was comprised of I would say 99% of women, save for my phenomenal campaign manager, who I'll give an awesome shout out to, who was a true gentleman throughout the entire process, Mr. Rory. I couldn't have done it without him. But aside from Rory, I had phenomenal women in both my constituency who were supporting me, but also women one of whom had run for office prior in another constituency, who was like, took me under her wing and was very much, you need to take care of yourself while you're going through this process, and sort of giving me the how it is behind the scenes when you're running. You've got to really take care of yourself in order to take care of what you love, which is the people and your country. And that guidance was invaluable. I'm forever indebted to those women who gave their time and dedication to supporting me in my campaign, and the list is endless. I can name them all out. I don't know if any of them want the shout out, so I won't. But humbly, they really, really pulled through for me, and I couldn't have done it without them. And they very much, like I said, took me under their wing and allowed me to take my project of running for office as under my wing. I have a very sort of maternal, protective nature over the Cayman Islands and its people and our environment, and it drives me to do what I do, and to work for it. It's not even work when, personally, it's an honor to step up and then be in a position where I can either inspire or affect positive change so that people's quality of life improves. It's a thankless job, but it's seeing that outcome is all the thanks one needs. From West Bay, I've got to give a huge shout out to Kathy Ann, who when she was elected, I sent her a huge, like, oh my goodness, all the emojis. You just made me the proudest West Bay woman. And, I love Kathy Ann to death. I'm so proud of her. She's the deputy speaker for being in office for her first time. That's phenomenal. I envision her being a female premier, and she's very inspiring to me. She's a very down-to-earth, genuine. She loves the people love her, and she's built and works very hard to maintain a beautiful relationship with her community that's exceptionally inspiring. And if I can even be half the elected representative she is, then my people will be very well off.
2025.
Yes.
So like you already have the banners up, Eden.
Oh yeah.
Ready to go.
I told Kathy this was her time in 2021, and 2025 is your time. You changed the conversation, and that is the important thing, to come along and make sure that people see, wait a second, there's a different way to think about things. There's a different thing to talk about here.
Absolutely.
And 2025 is going to be your time.
I hope so. I think the country is ready, deserving of not just myself being elected, but of just more alternatives, more positive change, stepping up and like giving people literally the democratic option to vote for somebody else. I stepped up because at the time the incumbent was uncontested, and to me that's not democratic, which is, quite frankly, one of the main reasons I selected the district of the constituency that I ran in. But you've really got to sort of look past the challenges that will be there and the adversity you will face, and look at it for the experience that it is, and keep your eye on the prize, and remember that when you win for your people to win, so that we can all win. And this teamwork makes the dream work kind of thing.
Yeah.
If we want to empower our people to be self-sufficient, take the proactive approach best we can.
Yeah.
Give people the dignity and, you know, no longer question their intelligence. You know, letting people, but, you know, be people and supporting them in the ways that they need to and ensuring
They
their
need to be. Yeah.
is
Awesome.
adequate. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
go ahead,
very
Chris.
cool. Yeah, I just want, I've made some observation that I want to just chime in on, is that, first of all, Minister Tinee Furbert is, one of her biggest qualities is her humility. What she hasn't mentioned is that she was also a senator before she was elected, and she became, in Bermuda's history, we in our setup, we have the opposition has 3 senators, the government has 5 senators, and the governor has 3. So while we were the opposition for 4.5 years, we had a three-person Senate team, and during the latter stages of that horrendous period in our history, um, Minister Furbert became at the time she wasn't a minister. Let me be clear. She became the 3rd woman senator. So the first time in Bermuda's history, we had a all women Senate team. So I just want to throw that out. She's humble, but I had to throw that out because the history has to be recorded here.
Yes, yes, I agree.
In regards to Ms. Decou, for the last 2 weeks, almost, the whole world has been hearing about COP26 and 1.5 to stay alive. And yourself and the Rascals, Eden, they're included, and Miss Shirley Hurston and Joanne Moxham and so many others have been fighting the fight to save Cayman's environment and making the rest of us in the region aware of environmental concerns way before COP26. So what you're essentially doing is setting out that way ahead of 2025 is that you are a leader. You don't have to be elected to be a leader. And you don't have to be elected, wait until you have an office to actually do things to save your country. And think that is what is the voters in wherever you choose to run, they'll see that, hey, she didn't quite get in 2021. I was 2021. But she has been working, her and the Rascals have been working themselves off. Johan and others, Alric, have been working their butts off in the interim to move us to a better place. And this is when people will naturally vote for you. Also, what Minister Furbert didn't mention is that she and I both were initially elected in June 2017, July 2017, and they are re-elected in October 2020, basically 11 months ago. So 13 months. And she was elected with an increased margin, meaning to say that whoever voted for her in 2017, they voted again for her. And many of those that didn't vote for her the first time around saw her commitment to the constituency and decided to give her their vote now. So this is what true leadership is about. And to Ms. Ward, before we make the transition, I could only imagine some of the words that you may have said, because like yourself, my mother is from BVI, so I know some of those dictions that they may use that the teachers would say, no, don't ever let me hear you talk like that again. What I and the listening audience love hearing about the mentorship that all of you have had. What we want to know now is, are you, and this is a loaded question, are you now mentoring others, and how are you mentoring others? So I will start off with you, Ms. Ward.
All right. The question is, am I mentoring anyone?
Yes. I know it's a loaded question, but.
No. And I was just wondering if you were asking if I had mentors, but that's fine. I think by virtue of my position, where I am now, that I lead a very hardworking team. Fortunately, in the government, we have a very active professional development program. So they're always offering courses or workshops. And I continue to encourage my team to register for the courses that are being offered. I wouldn't say that I have an official mentorship program, but again, by virtue of my position, I am responsible for my team's development. I may meet with them not only on how they develop themselves professionally, but also personally. I would try to spend time with them. And the team has been very, very responsive. I have seen changes or their eagerness to learn more, because it's about marketing yourself within government, because government is a big organization and we have various opportunities in working in various ministries. So I would say yes, that I'm currently mentoring my team, certainly on different levels. And there are people with whom I interact, whether in church or just the community, who I do have one-on-one interactions with, without saying, hey, I am mentoring you. That's what I am doing in offering guidance to them as they either seek an area in which they can work, or to strengthen and expand where they're currently working.
Okay, thank you. And Minister Furbert, tell us about your mentorships who are you mentoring? Not necessarily you name names, but um,
Thank you, MP Famous. First, I would like to say, well, I have two children. I have a son and I have a daughter, and I would like to say that I'm a mentor to my daughter, who inspires me greatly. But as far as mentorship, it's interesting how mentorship can work as well, because I think mentorship also, through mentorship, you have to be able to establish relationships with people and create connections and have things in common with people in which you mentor. And it's interesting how sometimes fate or just interconnectedness sometimes brings people together. And I remember there was a young lady couple of years ago, because the Progressive Labour Party, we put on women's events, and there was a young lady that had come to one of our women's events, and we did a call to women in our community who were interested in politics, and we had many women come out. And I just remember this one lady in particular who came out, and she was asking questions about politics and how she had an interest in politics. And today I can say that we work very closely together, and she's a part of my team. And so I'm very grateful to see how things work sometimes. And so I would say that mentorship is a relationship, which is a shared relationship. So I wouldn't necessarily say that, I'm mentoring this person, but she's also mentoring me as well. And so it's a two-way street when it does come to mentorship. But also our party has a women's caucus as well, and I'm part of the committee who's responsible for outreach and mentorship for women in our community. So that's just actually taken off, and I'm looking forward to that growing and developing, particularly for getting more women involved in running. We have lots of women involved in the party and behind the scenes as it relates to politics. But as far as women taking that step to run a campaign and be involved directly in leadership, I think it is important that our party maintain that women's caucus and that program outreach as it relates to women getting involved in politics. And so again, I'm looking forward to that particular program developing and growing.
yeah, I could attest to that, because women are the backbone of our party, Progressive Labor Party of Bermuda, and every organ of that party is essentially controlled by women. And when I say control, not in a dictatorial way, but the women have taken the party to another level, and there will be more and more women parliamentarians because of that. So thank you for your role in that. Ms. Decou, how are you mentoring young Caymanian women, or are you just mentoring the best Bay women? West Bay is the best Bay.
West Bay is the best way. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
Cayman is so small. I don't know if it would even be, I don't think it would even be something like a best way women's civics, inspirational mentorship. In my work with Amplify, I am very blessed to be able to get to meet a lot of people, especially a lot of very inspiring young Caymanians who just make my heart beam with pride when I hear what they're pursuing in university or whatever it is that they're studying, because I can just see the passion in them for how they're going to apply that when they get back to Cayman, because that's what they're doing it for. They're doing it so that they can serve their country, and it's very inspiring. I'm not actually directly mentoring anybody in what would perhaps be thought of in the average sense. But that being said, I do what I can to reach out to young people from Cayman who have been selected to go to COP26, for example, or who are leading their own little grassroots organizations. We've got a lot of phenomenal young people who are protecting mangroves, who are advocating for their futures, who want to advocate for their mental health. That a lot of phenomenal things that they're doing, and which inspire me. And I do my best to reach out to them, to build those bridges, to let them know, you've got someone in your corner who really admires and respects what you're doing. I got a lot of support from the younger folks in Cayman, some of whom are so young they can't even actually vote yet. And it's beautiful to watch their faces just sort of light up, and it drives me to do what I do and just to continue to do the work. It's not work. It's an honor. I love doing this. I love advocating for Cayman however I can for whoever needs that advocacy. And in campaigning, I develop a lot of networking relationships. So, if somebody approaches me with something, chances are I can find a solution for you that I might not have been able to find prior to me running. So, one of the best pieces of advice that I got during the election was from, I don't know, maybe you guys know him, Hurston. Yeah.
No, who's that again? We might have to Google him.
Best way, I don't know.
Yeah.
But he said to me, oh gosh, I'm pulling a blank now that I've just made a joke, but he said to me, the seed is not the prize, positive changes. And I kept that at heart because I'm realistic. I was optimistic. It's a very steep hill to climb as a first timer, as somebody who has not, like I said, got an academic background in politics. I knew it was a very tall mountain to climb, and that I needed to be optimistic but realistic. I knew the challenges I was facing, and I anticipated that this election would not be successful from a seat perspective, but it could not have been more successful from a positive change perspective. And in what I've been able to do since then, it's like I never stopped campaigning. I'm still doing what I love, which is getting out there, meeting people, working on solutions for the country to collectively prosper, and doing what we can to educate people on doing things differently. The status quo, it didn't work. Normal wasn't working. I don't know why we're so eager to go back to it. We need to shift perspectives, and best I can, I do what I can to enlighten people to a different alternative, where, it's like, you can you can have an actual work-life balance. You can work and contribute to society and still have time to come home and help your kids with their homework and make them a freshly cooked meal and watch a movie before bed and have that experience and have that family time. And right now a lot of people, for example, are stuck in traffic. They've long hours at the office, stressed out, not able to take care of themselves or their families, and without proper government infrastructure and good social support for our people, we're failing them. And best I can, I'm here to just lock arms with anybody who's willing to fight this fight, because it is a fight and we're all soldiers in it. We each have our own roles to play. We all bring different skills and strengths to the table. We can't all do the same thing or contribute the same amount, but it's all valuable. It's invaluable. We couldn't do what we do if we didn't have unity. And I would like to do something to, for the next election cycle, inspiring more young Caymanians to step up. And when I say young, I simply just mean people who are new to politics, who, not necessarily age, because we just need fresh blood in the house. And we're getting there.
Vampire.
we need.
I think what you're speaking to ties into what Ms. Ward spoke to, that the best sort of mentorship is when you're not even telling somebody you're mentoring them. It's just by your leadership or subtle guidance, they're picking up from you and saying, hey, yeah, maybe I should improve my addiction. Maybe I should find a course that I can do. And these are the things that inspire young people, or not so young people, that inspire people to do better for the country. And what I've never lived in Cayman. I've visited there once 3 years ago, along with Minister Furbert. And from what I see, there's I shouldn't say totally different, but there's a change in atmosphere in Cayman, not just politically, but socially, because persons like yourself, Joanne Moxon, Elric Lindsay, and others, and that guy they call, what's his name? Eden.
Eden.
They have inspired people to actually care about the country instead of just lining their pockets. So, I would thank you. You've mentored, you haven't just mentored people in Cayman, you've mentored myself without even knowing it. And I also have to thank you for being that beautiful voice of our very first Territories advert. People love that. Ms. Ward, let me ask you a question. Let me segue to another question.
Yes.
What is needed to get more women in the public service, in roles of leadership, not just in Virgin Islands, but in the region?
Yeah. And Chris, we have a question along those lines, and we'll pop it up.
Okay, sorry.
No, go ahead, and we'll let her respond, but I'll pop that up also.
Okay. You're asking what is needed. I often see replays of the final question of the 2019 Miss Universe pageant, when they asked who is now 2019 Miss Universe, the delegate from South Africa. I think the question was, what would you teach young girls? They were specific. I can't remember what the other two said, but I remember that she said that she will teach leadership. At the time I heard that, I thought, But she went on to explain about the importance of leadership and that you need to be taught leadership. Because as I said, leadership is a package. And we tend to look at just getting to a certain level, and leadership, you can be a leader on different levels. But I think it is important that women have an understanding of what it takes to be a leader. Academic qualifications certainly is key, because that would be the prerequisite for applying for a particular position. But explaining to women that as you ascend to higher levels or in any organization, private or public, what comes along with that territory and how prepared you should be mentally. Because I often tell people the higher you go in leadership, on the leadership rank level, the lonelier it becomes. Because the circle that you can of people that you can share information with becomes smaller. And can some people deal with that? I mean, where you're required to you're told information, but you need to keep that confidential. Um, the emotional, even as early as we can, teaching people about emotional intelligence, that too is needed in if you're going to want to be a leader. And again, you're going to learn over time. But I think it's important that we can teach the basics, even explaining about confidence challenges that women may have, because it depends on their circumstance or their environment. People may be second guessing them, and it depends on what support system they have. They could very well, I mean, self-esteem isn't something, I mean, that could just easily go right down. So even giving them some basics about what comes with the territory, there's a cost for leadership, because when you're in a leadership position, you're held to a certain standard, and people expect you to live your life even a certain way. But just like public officers, we're public officers 24 hours. If you're a leader and you're a leader in a particular realm, it doesn't end when you leave to go home. You're still a leader. Explaining to people, again, getting the academics and the responsibility that comes with leadership. But I think it's very important that very early on that we try to educate people. So even forums like these, people coming back and giving their experiences, I think are things that can help people. Because again, people look at the glamour and the glitz of leadership positions. And I mean, if you just know what sometimes we experience, what other people experience, being in a leadership position. So I would say that some sort of structured program, a leadership program where you take through maybe from teenage years, and to help groom women as
Thank
they
you.
pursue leadership careers.
Thank you.
What's
Minister
your
Furbert, what
opinion?
would you say?
Sorry,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Eden.
I was just wondering, Miss Ward, what's your opinion on quotas? Because we get asked this on almost every woman in leadership show that we do. And this lady Petrona Smith, she's asking about the introduction of quotas to increase women's representation. And I was interested on your on the panel's opinion about this, as you each give your input regarding what's needed to see more women leaders.
The introduction of quotas to increase women's representation in Parliament. I think election after election, we do hear about the balance of gender balance within Parliament. Right now, our ministerial level, the executive branch, is predominantly male. We do have 2 junior ministers who are female. But certainly going forward, I would say that it is something that we can consider to ensure that we have, because if you are an elected official, you're about representation. And I think it would be important that there is representation for the composition of the territory or the constituent that you're representing. So I think that that can be highly considered to make sure that we have that gender balance.
Okay, thank you. So, Minister Furbert, what is your thoughts on this question?
Thank you, MP Famous. I was just thinking and speaking to quotas. I mean, quotas will be the fastest way for us to get women to step forward as in leadership for politics. Is it the right way? I don't know. I think education as well is very important, and that will take more work. Education or educating persons in our community to what it looks like to have women in politics, or what it means, because I think a lot of women do not step forward. Number one, judgment. Women are protectors, and they want to be able to protect their families and people that surround them. And you have to have a solid support system when it comes to politics. Your partner has to be in it. Your parents have to be in it. Your siblings have to be in it. Um, or we say, well, maybe they don't, or they don't. It's just us running, but they're a part of you, and your family, your friends have to be truly solid to be able to help you to solidify your connections, particularly in the community, and your outreach. And then we have to remind each other of our interconnectedness and need for each other as well. So you cannot think, I'm going to run and I'm just running by myself. For myself, you're representing many women, and you're representing, you bring your family into this as well, and so everybody has to be on board. But that education piece and encouraging women to come into politics, it is again a commitment, and it's something that you have to continuously do. I did ask our party chair, Dawn Simons. I had asked her how many candidates did we have in our last election, which was October of 2020, and we had 15 females who had put their name forward versus 41 males. So we definitely have some work to do in regards to encouraging women to put their foot forward to take up the leadership mantle.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. And Ms. Decou, what would you say, what's your answer to this question? What's your opinion on this question, put that way?
I was asked this question during the campaign, not in the exact way Ms. Smith worded it, sorry, but I was asked, do we need more women in leadership? And my response was, we need more good people in leadership, because we've had women in leadership and we've had opportunities where they could represent the female constituents of the country, and have not done so, and for their own reasons, for whatever reason, it just was what it was. But I wouldn't say perhaps quotas, but that I see both perspectives of Minister Furbert and Miss Sandra, that it would encourage more women to step up, which would be phenomenal. I mean, we just need more diversity. We need full representation as much as possible. We just need good people. And if those good people happen to be women, yay, more power to us. But I don't really see there so much. I just see a person's, where their heart is, what their intentions and passions are. And, aside from Kathy, there were, I want to say 9 other women that ran, of which 5 were elected. So that's just over 25% of the House is female in Cayman, I'm hoping when 2025 rolls around that ratio, or that margin widens, I guess, and we see more women taking up more space and higher roles in Parliament. We've got Kathy, who, like I said, is Deputy Speaker, and that's wonderful. We want to see more of that. How do we inspire women to step up? You definitely have to take into consideration the sort of societal pressures. that have just come out of, patriarchal, systemic, roles in society throughout time, and do what we can to dismantle those so that we can empower women with the confidence they have. It's in there. We just need to help them feel it. And, even just having one person extend an olive branch saying, I support you, it can do wonders for an individual. I am inspired by all you phenomenal ladies and the gentlemen who support them. It takes a village, and it takes the support of, it takes the very solid support team of friends, family, and whatever your form of self-care is, in order to make it through the challenges that come with not just running for office, but running as a woman. It does have its challenges, for sure.
Okay, thank you. And I'll turn it over to our woman in charge, Mrs. Smith Archer, to wind down the show. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Chris. You're on mute.
I sure am. Just to kind of dovetail on what everyone said in terms of the quotas, I definitely endorse what Minister and Sandra spoke to in terms of it's a community effort, and the training is very key to that in terms of leadership development, because it's something where, again, for me, even growing up, it wasn't something that you encourage necessarily our girls to be leaders in whatever capacity that they may pursue, whether it's for their career or for even political leadership. And we're oftentimes dissuaded. And I remember from our first Women in Leadership episode, Chris, where sharing with the ladies from Anguilla and Montserrat that people were actively discouraging you as a woman from running for politics because they felt that it's too much rough and tumble, and it's dirty, and all the negativity that's perceived. And Emily is such a breath of fresh air. And I'm so curious, Emily, even with the fact that you ran independent, because then it takes a whole other level of confidence and determination to do that on your own without having the party machinery around you. And so kudos and hats off to you, even with that, in terms of taking that bold step. And that shows you that there's definitely a difference in our perception as far as what we can accomplish, whether as part of a team or on our own, that we want to be the change that we desire to see. And I really applaud you for that part of it, because I watched some of the debates, and your program, I was like, yep, she held her own. you held your own, and that was really awesome to see. Well, I guess the closing question tonight then, Chris, would be around, and we kind of touched on it because we were going to ask about what are some of the things that we want to see in terms of our societies, and how we do encourage more women to be involved in all levels of leadership. So whether it's in politics, business, within community organizations, or even within your families, we know that that's one of those important things. But what would be those closing words, I guess, we pose to our guests to encourage other women, especially our young women, to want to pursue careers, whether it's in the public service, it's in corporate, or even in politics, and leave those parting words to encourage them in terms of what we need to start to see from just our local levels, but even regionally. Because one of my biggest mentors out there, and I'm sure she doesn't know it yet, is PM Mia Moore-Motley. That is just shaking the region as far as I'm concerned. And every time she steps on the global stage, I am even more impressed with her. So, she started a movement of her own, whether she intended to or not. And I think it's something that the rest of us, Emily and myself, we're running behind her that wave, right, Emily?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Exactly. So, Minister, we'll start with you in terms of your words of encouragement.
Sure. Thank you. I first I want to apologize to my party chair. I said her last name wrong. Chair Dawn Simmons. I just want um, to big her up right now because she in her own right is a mentor of a woman in our party, and she's so knowledgeable and she's so experienced, and MP Famous, you should have her on this show.
Oh,
uh,
oh, don't, it's coming.
okay, all right.
I'm gonna have her on the show just around cup match time, and you know what?
All right. But to encourage women, I think that we as humans, we run away from conflict and we run away from strife or difficult times because it's not a good feeling, and it's not a feeling of balance, and it's not a feeling of something that feels right. And um, but we will always have to go through difficult times, and we will always feel as though we're fighting for something and we're fighting for justice and we want things that are just, and that for me that fight will evolve and it will be eternal, and because it's just that experience of life, you know, things are not always just. And so we cannot run away from that conflict. We have to be able to face it up front. And I just want to encourage women to not be afraid of that fight, that strife, the emotional turmoil that comes with it as well. That we have to be steadfast and uplift and uphold one another, um, to continue with that fight. And you know, we have to be personable as well, so that women know that we know that we can, and men, we know who we can go to for support. And so I want to just want to remind everyone that no policy or legislation is going to change someone's morals. It has to come from within. And just encourage women that yes, it's going to be a fight. It's going to be a fight, but you have to be up for that fight. And I see women up for that fight every day, advocating for many things. And so we just encourage you to come on board with that fight of navigating for better for people.
Awesome. Thank you. So Emily, well, you're up next, and I'll leave Sandra for last.
If I could say anything, it would just be recognize that you've got a voice, and if you've got a passion and you have a drive to advocate, whether that be for mangroves, young children, the elderly, you know, whatever it is, do it. Like, life is too short. You were created to make a difference, and I can say that to every single human being. And you have the power to make a positive difference. You have the same energy to do something negative, and if you can do something positive out of it, you're an exceptional being who inspires me. And you know, it's difficult. It's hard to, you know, be in a position where you're asked a difficult question and you have to give an answer, and everything is going through your mind. Am I saying the right thing? Am I offending somebody? You know, just have to know your heart and know if it's in the right place, that you're coming from a place of love, and that if you're genuine in your approach, people will recognize that you're not approaching decisions with malice, with bad faith. You know, you're coming at this from that place of love, and always speak up for those who are you know, less vulnerable. Speak your truth, even if your voice shakes. As I say, you know, nothing worth having in life comes easy, and if you're determined to, if your aspiration is to go into politics, please stick with it. Please garner whatever you know, friends or mentors you can find to support you in that journey, because we need you. You know, we we've got a whole future to help plan and shape, and it's in our hands, literally. And we live in beautiful democracies where we can do that, and we shouldn't take advantage of that or take that for granted, rather, you know. And like I said, if you've got that drive in you, if it's even just an iota right now, it snowballs as you do more positive work. It builds and it drives you, and it's second nature after a certain point. You know, you walk into a room and you're no longer just the kind of, you know, shy and keep your mouth quiet and you just listen along and nod your head. You're contributing to the conversation, and your perspective is admired and respected, and it's sought. You know, you're unstoppable. You really can change the world. You know, there's an African proverb I'm going to probably mess up, but anybody who thinks something like, it's anybody who thinks that one person can't change the world has never been in a tent with a mosquito or something like that. You know, stay persistent, stay headstrong. You've got this. You've got this. Trust me. You know, you have to. You're only guaranteed yourself in life. You've got to be your own everything. You've got to be your own support system sometimes, your own hype girl, as I call it. You've got your pom-poms in your head, your cheerleader. You know, when you're like, all right, your countdown to your Territories Talk show is on, you're in your head and you're like, this is going to go great. You're talk yourself up, you know. Remind yourself of how awesome you are and how, like I said, it's an honor what you're doing, and it's just what life is about. Is if you have a gift, it's using that gift to help other people use it. It's what the world needs.
Purpose.
Want to be the change? Just do it. I mean, look at the alternative. Is if you don't, right? People around you continue to suffer. Your environment continues to be destroyed, and you probably die with the regret of, oh, what if I had just stepped up and said something?
Yeah.
And if you know, there's the bystander effect. What if other people are feeling that around you? If that collective bystander effect is that I think somebody else is going to step up. You know, there's a saying that is the greatest threat to our planet is the thought that somebody else will save it. It's a similar sort of mindset. You know, just chances are they might not. There might be something that's preventing them, whether it just be their family, their life situation where they just can't run right now, but somebody to inspire them. If you can, do it.
Do it. Just do it. All right. Thanks, Emily.
Thanks.
Miss Sandra,
Yes.
your parting words.
All right. So just do it. I'll say that it is doable. And my advice really to women is that the future awaits you. Our honorable premier always says that the future is for the prepared. I think especially now, since so many institutions of learning have shifted to online learning, there's no longer the excuse that because of family obligations or even finances, why you cannot leave your residence or your country to go overseas to pursue studies. It is important that you are indeed academically prepared. And I do believe that you should take advantage of the online learning opportunities. And if for some reason you're not quite sure what is your purpose, because we are all created for a purpose, you can Google, find out what are emerging careers and see how they fit in. I mean, data science is something. I mean, but it could be some other area. You have the tools, they have the search engines, and then you can also speak to people. So my thing is, whatever limitations you have set on yourself as a woman, and why you think that you cannot pursue a particular thing or achieve it, I encourage you to take those limitations off right now. And I say to you that you are created for a purpose and the future awaits you. You can do it. You can do it.
Awesome. Well, Chris, I don't know about you, but if you're not motivated to go out and take the world by storm, then we didn't do our job tonight. These ladies, they came through as promised. All right, over to you, Chris. Close us out.
Yep, you're muted.
He's muted.
You're muted, Chris.
He's muted. Yeah.
Sorry, I was saying, forgive me for looking a little tired around the eyes. I've been traveling for the last 2 days. But you know, as what I love about this show is that it gives the women of our region a voice, and more importantly, as importantly, the women of the overseas territories, because often the overseas territories on a whole get overlooked because of the bigger island. So what Miss Waters said is that we have to do this ourselves. We are taking advantage of online learning. We are taking advantage of online platforms to it's not Eden and I that's going to be speaking. We might ask a question, but it's the ladies that are speaking and that are inspiring other ladies to speak up as well. And over the next few months, we have persons from Turks and Caicos, persons from Montserrat and Grilla. I love this show, and I love what you ladies have contributed. And I just want to say, well, Emily, you're permanently voice now for the adverts.
I think
your
so too.
Your application was approved.
Thank you, Chris. That's awesome. It's an honor.
So thank you, Minister. Thank you, Madam Cabinet Secretary, and thank you, future MP Decou.
Thank you.
Thank you again. I thank you very much for the opportunity.
So
nice to have met all of you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Good
Inspiration.
Yeah, just gonna my little Cayman.
Yeah.
The best way.
Yeah. On board. Chris gets it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta get you at some point, giving us some cooked food.
Now that your borders are reopened, I could come back and get some peppers and Tortuga rum.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lots of Wahoo running right now too.
All right.
Uh-huh.
Good night, everybody.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
And for my apologies. Thank you to Channel 82 in Bermuda, and thank you to CBN Radio in the Virgin Islands, and thank you to Mr. Mark Zuckerberg for Facebook, helping us to put all this together. We know you're under a lot of pressure, Mark, but we want to thank you, buddy. And thank you, most of all, thank you to those who are viewing and have submitted questions and so on.
Awesome.
See you in 2 weeks' time.
Next time.
All right.
And I almost forgot. Oh, geez. You know, we get so caught up in our conversations. Please like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Yeah, a couple of viewers on YouTube tonight, so that was really great to see them. All right. All right, guys.
Okay. All right.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.